My best friend stole my wedding day, and you won't believe how. Some moments are burned into your memory forever, right? Your first love, graduation day, the day you marry your dream person. My wedding day, oh, it's burned in there, all right. But definitely not for the reasons I'd always daydreamed about. Nope, my memory is a gut-wrenching highlight reel of shock, public humiliation, and a betrayal so deep it still makes my breath catch just thinking about it. She wasn't just any guest. She was my best friend, my rock, the one person I thought would be bursting with happiness for me. Instead, she made it her personal mission to steal my wedding day. And the way she did it? Seriously, you just won't believe it. Picture this. You're standing there, in your perfect dress, vows done, a little smile finally on your face after months of crazy planning. Then, a commotion. A voice, loud and sharp, slicing through the happy buzz of your guests. And it hits you. The nightmare is only just getting started, and it's being directed by the one person you trusted more than anyone in the world. Let's call her Chloe. Chloe and I, we'd been joined at the hip since kindergarten. We somehow survived high school together, cried on each other's shoulders through those first awful heartbreaks, and cheered for every single win, big or small. She felt more like a sister than just a friend. Our bond felt solid, unbreakable. So when Mark, the absolute love of my life, proposed, Chloe was the very first person I called, literally screaming with excitement. She was, of course, going to be my maid of honor. Looking back now, there were little things. Tiny, almost invisible cracks in her best friend ever performance. I guess I was too caught up in the wedding planning tornado to really notice. Or maybe I just wanted to keep seeing the Chloe I knew and loved. We'd spend hours looking through bridal magazines, and she'd make suggestions, but sometimes her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, you know? There was this weird possessiveness when I talked about Mark, a sharp little comment disguised as a joke about how much time I was spending with him. Don't forget your old friends when you're all married and boring, she'd laugh, but it always felt a bit off. Dress shopping, that was something else. I'd found the one. A stunning, classic A-line dress with gorgeous lace. It made me feel like a princess. I cried, my mom cried. Chloe? She just kind of nodded and said, "It's nice." Real flat. Then, a week later, she texted me a picture of this completely different dress she saw online. Way more revealing, super modern. Maybe something like this would be more memorable, she wrote. I just brushed it off, thinking she was trying to be helpful, give me options. Now, I see it for what it really was. Her first little jab, trying to nudge the spotlight. As the wedding got closer, Chloe seemed to get even more involved. Like, way too involved. She had an opinion on everything, from the flowers to the font on the invitations. At first, I actually appreciated her enthusiasm. Wedding planning is a beast, and having my best friend so into it felt like a lifesaver. But her suggestions started feeling less like helpful ideas and more like corrections. She'd really push for vendors she knew, or color schemes that weren't quite what I wanted. If I gently said no, there'd be this flash of something, annoyance, resentment, before she'd slap on a super sweet smile. Just want your day to be perfect, sweetie, she'd chirp, and I, totally blinded by years of friendship, would just ignore that uneasy feeling in my gut. Mark, bless him, actually picked up on it. He'd sometimes gently ask about her. Are you sure Chloe's okay with all this? She seems a bit intense, he'd say. And I'd jump to her defense, of course. She's just excited for me, Mark. She's my best friend. She wouldn't do anything to hurt me. Oh, the irony kills me. The bachelorette party she planned was a lot, almost over the top. It felt less like it was about celebrating me and more about showing off how she could throw an insane party. There were moments that weekend, between the laughs and the champagne, where I'd catch her looking at me with this expression I just couldn't figure out. It wasn't happiness. It was something else, something unsettling that I'd quickly tell myself I was imagining. It's amazing what you can ignore when you want to believe the best about someone. One thing really stands out, a massive red flag I totally ignored. We were trying to finalize the seating chart, which was already a nightmare. Chloe kept insisting that her cousin, a guy I'd met maybe twice, had to be at a better table. He's really looking forward to it, and he knows a lot of your family, she argued. It felt like a weird request, but I was exhausted, and it seemed like a small thing to give in on. Later, I found out her cousin wasn't even planning to come until Chloe practically bribed him, promising him an unforgettable show. What show? I had no idea back then. The week before the wedding, the stress was insane. Last-minute details, family flying in, just the sheer nerves and excitement. Chloe was always there, fluttering around, offering help that usually just made more work. She volunteered to pick up my wedding dress from the final fitting. "Let me take that off your plate," she insisted, her smile wide and reassuring. I was so grateful, relieved to hand off one more task. That was my mistake. A huge, life-changing mistake. She also offered to collect the RSVP cards for the rehearsal dinner, which was just a small, intimate thing for the bridal party and our immediate families. She promised me she had it all under control. This tiny detail, seemingly no big deal, would end up being a key part of the chaos that was coming. The night before the wedding, we had our traditional sleepover, just like when we were kids. We talked about old times, about my future with Mark. She seemed almost like her old self. She gave me this beautiful antique locket. "Something old," she said, and her eyes were kind of glistening. For a split second, all my doubts just melted away. This was Chloe, my best friend. The locket felt heavy around my neck, like a symbol of our friendship. Little did I know it was more like a Trojan horse, a pretty disguise for the bomb she was about to drop. The morning of my wedding was bright and beautiful. A perfect June day. I woke up with that mix of butterflies and pure excitement. My bridesmaids, my sister, and my mom were all there. A whirlwind of hairspray, makeup, and laughter. Chloe, though, she was quiet. Not her usual bubbly self. She kept busy with little things, avoiding my gaze. I just figured it was the emotion of the day. Maybe she was feeling a bit sad about me getting married. How wrong I was. The first sign that something was horribly, terribly wrong came when it was time to put on my dress. Chloe had brought it, all neatly zipped in its garment bag. My mom unzipped it, her hands gentle. And then she gasped. This awful, choked sound. I turned, my heart starting to hammer in my chest. My beautiful, perfect wedding dress was ruined. Not just a little damaged, not a small stain. It looked like someone had taken scissors to the delicate lace on the bodice, snipping and tearing it viciously. And down the skirt, a dark, obvious stain. Red wine. It was a deliberate, cold-blooded act of destruction. Panic. Just pure, terrifying panic seized me. Tears welled up, hot and angry. What happened? I choked out, looking around the room like a crazy person. All eyes went to Chloe. She stood there, pale, her hands clasped tight. I don't know," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "It must have happened at the bridal shop or on the way here. I am so sorry." Her apology felt empty, like she'd rehearsed it. My sister, always the practical one, was already on the phone, frantically calling bridal shops, anyone who might have a sample dress, anything. My mom was trying to calm me down, but I could see the absolute fury in her eyes, aimed right at Chloe. The mood in the room, which had been so happy, was now thick with tension and disbelief. This wasn't an accident. This felt like sabotage. By some miracle, we managed to find a replacement dress. It was nice, but it wasn't my dress. It felt like I was wearing a costume. As I was getting ready, this cold dread just settled in my stomach. Chloe's story didn't make any sense. The dress had been perfect at the final fitting. She was the only one who'd had it since. The ceremony itself is a blur. I walked down the aisle with my dad, my heart like a lead weight. I saw Mark waiting for me, his face a mix of love and concern. He knew something was up, but he didn't know the half of it. Not yet. I tried to focus on his eyes, on the vows we were saying, but Chloe's betrayal hung in the air like a toxic cloud. She stood right beside me, her maid of honor dress a cruel joke, her face a carefully arranged mask of sympathy. The reception. This was where Chloe's plan, her big, dramatic performance, really kicked off. We just finished our first dance, a moment I'd dreamed about, now totally spoiled by this awful feeling. My dad was giving his toast, his voice all emotional. And then, it happened. Chloe, who was supposed to give her maid of honor toast next, didn't even wait. She tapped her champagne glass, not that gentle clink-clink people do, but a sharp, loud rap. The music, which had just started up for dancing, stumbled and stopped. The whole room went quiet. She stepped forward, a microphone suddenly in her hand. Where did she even get that? She wasn't holding it a second ago. If I could have everyone's attention, she started, her voice surprisingly strong, confident. Way too confident. I have a very, very important announcement to make. I shot a confused look at Mark. My parents looked just as baffled. What on earth was she doing? Today is a day of love, of new beginnings, Chloe went on, her eyes sweeping the room, then landing on me with an expression I couldn't read. And speaking of new beginnings. She paused for dramatic effect, a sickeningly smug little smile on her face. I'm pregnant. A wave of murmurs went through the guests. Pregnant? Okay, a bit weird to announce it at someone else's wedding, but maybe she just got carried away? My mind was racing, trying to make it make sense. But she wasn't done. Oh no, she was just getting warmed up. And the father, she declared, her voice getting louder, is none other than the groom. Mark. Time just stopped. All the air got sucked out of the room. A collective gasp, then this dead silence, so quiet you could hear a pin drop. My head snapped towards Mark. His face was ghostly white, his eyes wide with shock, and was that guilt? No, it couldn't be. This was a lie. A horrible, disgusting lie. Chloe was beaming, actually beaming, like she'd just shared the best news ever. She put a hand possessively on her flat stomach. We've been having an affair for months, she announced, her eyes locking onto mine, a triumphant, evil glint in them. He never loved you. He always wanted me. The world just tilted. My legs felt like jelly, like they were about to buckle. This wasn't happening. This was a nightmare. My best friend, my husband. No, it was a lie. It had to be. But the way she said it, with such total conviction, and the way some guests were looking from her, to Mark, to me, their faces a mix of pity and sick curiosity. My mother cried out. My father was on his feet, his face turning purple with rage. What is the meaning of this, Chloe? He boomed. Mark finally found his voice, shaking his head like crazy. That's not true. None of it is true. Chloe, what are you doing? He looked at me, his eyes begging me to believe him. Darling, I swear, this is insane. She's lying. But Chloe just laughed, this high, brittle sound. Oh, Mark, don't be shy. Tell them. Tell them about our nights together. Tell them how you said you felt trapped, how you wished you could be with me. Then she did something truly evil. She reached into her clutch, the one that had magically produced a microphone, and pulled out a small stack of printed photos. Photos. She started passing them to the nearest tables. Proof, in case you need it, she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. My sister, God bless her, tried to step in, to grab the photos, but it was too late. Gasps and horrified whispers followed the pictures as they made their way around. I felt a wave of sickness wash over me. What was in those photos? What had she done? Guests were openly staring now, their first shock turning into this gross fascination. My dream wedding, my perfect day, had become a public circus of betrayal, and I was the unwilling, humiliated clown in the spotlight. Chloe wasn't just stealing the spotlight. She was pouring gasoline on it and throwing a match, with me still standing right in the middle. Then, total chaos. My uncle was yelling at Chloe. Her own parents, who were there, looked absolutely mortified, trying to pull her away, but she stood her ground, just soaking in the destruction she'd caused. Mark was frantically trying to deny everything to get to me, but there was this wall of shocked guests and growing arguments between us. And me? I just stood there, frozen. The beautiful replacement wedding dress felt like a funeral shroud. The locket Chloe had given me felt like it was burning my skin. The joy, the love, the hope I'd felt just a little while ago, all gone. Smashed, replaced by this cold, empty despair and a rage so strong it left me speechless. My best friend hadn't just stolen my wedding day. She had taken a sledgehammer to my entire life. And the how of it all was way more twisted than I could ever have imagined. The how. That's the part that still gives me chills. The part that's so hard to believe. The part that shows just how deep her premeditated cruelty went. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment jealous outburst. It was a carefully, cruelly planned attack. The photos. Those awful photos Chloe had passed around so gleefully. Mark managed to grab one. His face went from white with shock to dark red with fury. They weren't what Chloe made them out to be. They weren't pictures of Mark and Chloe caught in the act. Not really. They were cleverly, sickeningly photoshopped. Chloe had, over months, taken candid shots of Mark at barbecues, group hangouts, even a few sheets sneakily snapped. And she had edited herself into them, creating scenes that looked intimate. A hand on his arm here, her head supposedly resting on his shoulder there. In one particularly vile one, she'd photoshopped her face onto my body in one of our engagement photos, standing next to Mark. The most damning ones were darker, grainier, trying to suggest secret meetings. They were just good enough, in the shock of the moment, with her loud announcements, to plant those seeds of doubt, to create the illusion of an affair. It was pure psychological warfare. And the pregnancy? A total lie. She wasn't pregnant at all. Days later, desperate for the truth in all this mess, I confronted another of Chloe's friends, someone who'd also started to get weird vibes from her. This friend, full of guilt for not speaking up sooner, confessed that Chloe had been talking for months about wanting Mark to realize he was with the wrong person. Chloe had apparently even bought a fake pregnancy test and a small prosthetic bump she was going to wear if her announcement didn't cause the explosion she wanted. Her goal was to create a scandal so huge, so public, that Mark would be forced to leave me, and I'd be too humiliated to fight it. It was completely delusional. It was monstrous. The dress. Trashing my wedding dress wasn't just random spite. It was strategic. By ruining my dress, she wanted to throw me off, to make me a wreck right before her big show. She probably hoped I'd be too upset, too emotionally fragile, to deal with her revelations at the reception. She'd picked it up, and in the hours she had it, she systematically destroyed it, knowing how much it meant to me. She wanted to break my spirit before she blew up my world. The rehearsal dinner RSVPs she'd handled, she had deliberately not invited Mark's closest cousin and his wife, people who knew Chloe pretty well and had actually mentioned to us that they thought she was a bit too friendly with Mark. Chloe knew they'd likely see right through her act and maybe warn us or try to set the record straight. She was cutting us off, making sure her story was the only one people would hear. The immediate aftermath of her reception bombshell was pure chaos. My father and Mark's brothers, after a moment of stunned silence, basically had to physically remove a still ranting Chloe from the venue. Her parents followed, their faces just etched with shame and disbelief. Guests were practically running for the exits, whispering, staring. The beautiful wedding venue felt like a disaster zone. The band had stopped playing. The catering staff just stood there awkwardly. My dream had turned into a public horror show. Mark, once he could finally get to me, was beside himself, almost incoherent with rage and desperation. He swore on everything imaginable that Chloe was lying, that he had never, ever been unfaithful, that he only loved me. Looking into his eyes, seeing the raw pain and total confusion there, a part of me, the part that hadn't been completely shattered, believed him. But those seeds of doubt, so maliciously planted, were there. How could my best friend, someone I'd known my whole life, make up something so evil? Why would she? The why is maybe the sickest part of it all. It wasn't a sudden snap. It was this slow burn of jealousy and resentment that had been simmering for years. According to that mutual friend who eventually spilled some of Chloe's secrets, Chloe had always been secretly jealous of my life, my relationship with Mark, my career, even little things. My happiness, it seemed, was a constant, painful reminder to her of what she felt she didn't have. My wedding, the ultimate symbol of my happiness and future, was the final trigger that pushed her over the edge. She couldn't stand to see me have it all, so she decided to destroy it. If she couldn't have that kind of happiness, or specifically, if she couldn't have Mark, which, it turned out, was some twisted fantasy she'd been nursing, then she was going to make damn sure I couldn't have it either. Her supposed love for Mark wasn't really about him. It was about wanting what I had. The days and weeks that followed were a living hell. My honeymoon was, of course, canceled. Instead of enjoying being newlyweds, Mark and I were wading through this minefield of accusations, explanations, and soul-crushing emotional pain. We had to talk to our families, to our friends, to explain something that felt totally unexplainable. Some people, thankfully, saw Chloe's actions for the vicious lies they were. Others kind of kept their distance, the poison of her words having sunk in. The public humiliation was intense. Every sympathetic look felt like a judgment. Our relationship, Mark's and mine, was seriously tested. Trust, which had been so easy before, was fractured. Not because I truly believed he'd had an affair, but because Chloe's betrayal was so huge, it made me question everything, everyone. We went to therapy, both separately and as a couple. It was a long, painful process of rebuilding, of sifting through the wreckage Chloe had left behind. There were times I honestly wasn't sure we would make it. The shadow of her betrayal was just so big. As for Chloe, her life pretty much imploded. Her parents, completely horrified by what she'd done, insisted she get psychiatric help. Many of her friends, including the one who told me her secrets, cut ties with her. She became an outcast. There was some talk of pressing charges for slander or for destroying my dress, but in the end, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. The thought of dragging that whole disgusting mess through court was too much. My revenge, if you can even call it that, was cutting her out of my life completely, blocking her on everything, erasing every single trace of our decades-long friendship. It was like mourning a death, but the death of a friendship that had turned toxic. The unbelievable how was her sheer nerve, her careful planning, her ability to turn our friendship into a weapon, to twist years of shared memories into tools to destroy me. She used my trust like a knife and stuck it right in my back on what should have been my happiest day. She didn't just want to steal the spotlight. She wanted to blow it up, making sure my wedding would forever be remembered not for love and joy, but for scandal and betrayal. It took a long time, a really long time, for that raw wound to even start to heal. The joy of my wedding day is something I can never get back. It's forever spoiled. But slowly, painfully, Mark and I started to heal. We focused on each other, on the truth of our love. We had a small, private ceremony a year later, with just our closest family and a handful of true friends. It wasn't the big party I'd once dreamed of, but it was real, and it was ours, untouched by Chloe's poison. Years have passed since that awful day. The anger and the raw pain have faded a lot, replaced by this lingering sadness and a much more cautious outlook on things. What Chloe did was an extreme, insane betrayal, born from some dark place inside her, but it taught me some pretty harsh lessons about friendship, trust, and just how complicated people can be. The first, and maybe most obvious, lesson was that even the longest friendships aren't safe from turning toxic. 15 years of shared history, laughter, and secrets, I really believed that bond was unbreakable. I was so wrong. I learned that just because you've known someone forever doesn't mean they'll always be loyal or genuinely happy for you. People change, and sometimes, Those changes can lead them down these dark paths of envy and resentment that you just don't see coming, especially when you're looking at them through rose-colored glasses of affection and nostalgia. I learned to pay way more attention to those little red flags, those times when words didn't quite match actions, the weird negative undercurrents I used to just brush off. Another tough lesson was about how sneaky and destructive jealousy can be. Chloe's actions weren't just about wanting to be the center of attention for a day. They were about this deep-seated envy of my life, my relationship, my happiness. That was a really bitter pill to swallow. It's hard to accept that someone you thought of as a sister could feel such awful things towards you. It made me realize that not everyone who smiles with you is actually smiling for you. Sometimes, your happiness can be a trigger for someone else's pain or insecurity, and in extreme cases, that can explode in really damaging ways. The whole experience also forced me to totally rethink what trust means. I had given Chloe my complete trust, never questioning her motives, always giving her the benefit of the doubt. Her betrayal just shattered that. It taught me that trust, while it's super important, also needs to be earned, over and over, and that it's okay to be careful, even with people you've known for ages. It's not about being suspicious of everyone all the time. It's about being smart and protecting your own heart. The public way she did it was also a harsh reminder of how vulnerable you can be when your private life gets thrown into a negative public spotlight. Rebuilding my relationship with Mark after something so public and traumatic was another huge learning curve. It taught us how vital communication is, and how important it is to be each other's unwavering support system, especially when you're facing attacks designed to tear you apart. We had to learn to trust each other even more deeply, to be a solid team against the chaos Chloe had unleashed. Our love was strong enough to get through it, but man, it took a ton of effort, patience, and being willing to be really vulnerable with each other about the pain and doubt her actions had caused. It really proved that a true partnership isn't about avoiding storms, but about getting through them together. I also learned about resilience, both my own and Mark's. There were days I honestly didn't think I could get past the humiliation, the anger, just the sheer disbelief. But slowly, day by day, we kept going. We focused on the good in our lives, on the people who truly loved and supported us. We found strength we didn't even know we had. That tiny, private ceremony we had a year later wasn't just us renewing our vows. It was us taking back our story, a statement that love and truth can eventually win out over malice and deceit. Losing a 15-year friendship is a big deal, no matter how it ended. There was definitely a grieving period, not for the Chloe who did those horrible things, but for the Chloe I thought I knew, the friend I'd grown up with. It taught me that sometimes, friendships don't just fade away, they blow up, and it's okay to mourn that loss, even if the person who caused it also caused you incredible pain. It also taught me how important it is to choose your inner circle carefully. The friends who stuck by us, who offered their absolute support without a single question, became even more precious. Moving forward hasn't meant forgetting. I don't think I'll ever truly forget the shock and horror of that day. But it has meant refusing to let Chloe's actions define my life or my ability to be happy. It's meant building new memories, focusing on the positive, and cherishing the genuine relationships I have. It's meant understanding that her betrayal was about her own issues, not about my worth. The locket she gave me? I threw it into the ocean. It felt like a symbolic way of letting go, of washing away her toxicity. Some scars are still there, and I'm definitely more guarded than I used to be. But I'm not bitter. I chose to move forward, to build a life filled with love and honesty, something her jealousy could never really touch. My wedding day was stolen, yes, but she didn't steal my future. This was, without a doubt, one of the most painful things I've ever been through, and sharing it isn't easy. But if this story can help even one person spot the warning signs in a friendship, or find some strength after a betrayal, then it's worth telling. Have you ever been deeply betrayed by someone you trusted? How did you deal with it and move on? Share your stories and thoughts in the comments below. I really do believe there's healing in knowing you're not alone. And if you found this story compelling, please give it a like, and maybe consider subscribing for more personal stories. Your support means so much. In the end, what my ex-best friend did was a desperate, twisted attempt to make herself feel better about her own unhappy life by trying to destroy mine. And while she definitely succeeded in turning my dream wedding into a public train wreck, she failed in the long run. Because what she couldn't steal, what no one can ever truly take away, is your own strength, your ability to heal, and your power to choose love and happiness, even after unimaginable hurt. It's a long road, for sure, but it's one worth traveling. Thanks for listening. What you think about this story? Write in the comment your opinion. On my channel, you can watch other revenge or cheating stories. See you soon, my dear viewer.